Hi, my name is Kelsey Hardy. Peter Drucker says that the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. We are living in a technology-driven world. We no longer send letters or call each other on the house phone. Instead, most communication is done via text message or social media sites. Social media sites are used to update statuses or send a tweet to let our families know what is going on with our lives. All of this is done within moments, thus connecting us to our families faster than ever before. Yet if the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said, what good is technology to building relationships with our family? Since you aren't able to read body language or see facial expressions online or over a text message. You can't hear tone, inflection, or anything important like that. For all the benefits that these forms of communication give us, they come with some negative impacts to our relationships. Should we worry about these negative impacts? The answer to that question is yes. Family life has changed in the last generation. Sizes of homes have grown by 50%. Family members can retreat to their own corners of the house, where there's less chance that parents and children will see each other. Everyone is busy with work, school, and extracurricular activities, so there's less time for family members to spend together. Add technology to this mix, and it only gets worse. It's gotten to the point where it seems like parents and children are emailing and texting each other more than they are talking. The ramifications of this distancing are profound. Families don't build relationships as strong as they could be or maintain them. Children will feel less familiarity, comfort, trust, security, and love from their parents. There's less sharing going on. Parents know less about what is going on with their children's lives. Children may seek comfort elsewhere with the people that they meet online. These people could be complete strangers who wish to harm them. Parents are also less able to not only offer appropriate supervision and guidance, but at a more basic level, they are less able to model healthy behavior, share positive values, and send good messages to their children. Researchers at Yale found that people are communicating more, but the quality of that communication is weaker. Kids who spend time engaging online with other children or adults struggle to understand emotion, create strong relationships, or become more dependent on others. Does a friendly emoji replace a hug or a phone call? Probably not, psychologist Jim Taylor says, and that divide is becoming very real within families. We are raising children to become adults who will have trouble having relationships with others. They will be unable to understand emotions. We are teaching our children to be dependent on others, which isn't a good thing. We want to raise independent adults who can create strong relationships. A parenting expert and pediatric nurse, Denise Daniels, says these kids aren't connecting emotionally. Emails, texts, these lack the emotive qualities of face-to-face interaction. Mark Brackett, director of the Yale University Center for Emotional Intelligence, says, what's the balance? If all you're doing is using Facebook, you're not getting the interpersonal connection you need. Kids want to be hugged and touched. They don't want to be texted. There's a basic need to fulfill that social bond. There is a positive that social media gives us. It gives us the ability to connect to anyone at any time. We can check in on Facebook to let our families know where we are. We can post a status on how we are doing. While this is great because we can catch up with family members who are states away, the ramifications of these negative outweigh the positive. A lot of family members decide to communicate important life events over social media, thus making them seem impersonal. In one way or another, the internet has made us feel more connected to each other, but it is tearing us apart as well. People don't speak to their parents on the phone anymore. They like statuses, share articles with each other, or chat about trifles. We don't take the time to make meaningful relationships, and we run the risk of alienating the people who are important in our lives, such as family members. And this is because we confuse digital intimacy with true intimacy. We become so seduced by the ease of connecting with others online that we begin to think that relationships are more intense, more committed, and more complete than they really are. Another negative impact that social media has is the lack of privacy. When there's a conflict, fight, or even a happy event, we post about it online. This leads to a transparency of relationships. and this can cause one of the spouses to be frustrated by the fact that intimate details of their family life are being exposed to a large number of unfamiliar people. This leads to additional conflicts, further posting about these conflicts in social media, and thus creates an endless cycle of problems. When there's a problem, children no longer go to their parents for comfort or support. They'd much rather vent about it on social media. Another negative impact is that parents have to try and encourage the children to go outside and play. Author Richard Love coined the phrase nature deficit disorder, which describes the younger generation's disconnect with nature. How often do you see kids playing in the woods, building forts, or rolling down grassy hills? A study done at the University of Michigan in 2004 said that kids play outside 2 hours less a week than 2 decades ago, and they instead spend that extra time watching TV, on the computer, reading, or doing nothing at all. In 2004, the CDC said childhood obesity has tripled since 1980 in the US. One of the most technology advanced countries also has one of the highest shares of obese people in the world. Not a correlation to be proud of. 2/3 of all Americans own a cell phone. In a study done by the Pew Institute that consisted of 14 surveys spanning over a 1-week period, 97% of smartphone owners use text messaging once. During that study, 91% of owners aged 18 to 29 use social networking on their phone. 55% of adults 55 and older use social networking. We use text messaging to communicate with each other. A survey done by the Pew Institute shows that Americans aged 18 to 29 receive an average of 88 messages per day. And then in a time poll, 32% of all respondents said that they would rather communicate by text than phone, even with people that they know. Texting is beneficial to send a quick message to a family member, but a lot is lost in a text message. We don't get to see facial expressions. We can misinterpret the meaning of the messages sent, and this can cause conflict within relationships with your family because you mean one thing and they can take it in a different way. MIT psychologist Sherry Turkle says that the texted apology is a good example of what's lost when we type instead of speak. A full-scale apology means I know I've hurt you. I get to see that in your eyes, and you get to see that I'm uncomfortable. And with that, the compassion response kicks in. There are many steps, and they're all bypassed when we text. When the apology takes place over the phone rather than in person, the visual cues are lost. Part of the appeal of texting is that the situation is less painful, but the pain is the point. The complexity and messages of human communication get shortchanged. These things are what lead to better relationships. We are letting social media and text messaging tear our families apart. We don't sit down and have face-to-face communication anymore. Instead, we spend time communicating through text and social media. We are raising our children to be dependent on others, unable to understand emotions or create strong relationships. Is that really what we want? We need to break the hold that these new forms of communication have on us before it's too late. To quote Albert Einstein, I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. Mike.